So thank you, Marshall. We appreciate all of your support helping us to get this going today. Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone to the second Interviews and Insights. We have a wonderful edition for you today. Thank you very much for joining us. It's great to see so many people in the audience today. I would like to acknowledge National Grid. National Grid has come forward to sponsor our insights and interviews, so I want to thank them for their financial support. As the first one, we've got a great speaker today as well. We're very, very pleased to introduce the Command Sergeant Major at Fort Drum, Mario Terenas. He was brought here back in early March. Actually, I think he had the first change of responsibility, as I understand, in the COVID pandemic. So it was the first one that was not open to the public, unfortunately. So actually, he and I have not met face to face yet. So I do regret that, but it's wonderful that he can be with us. He is, of course, the senior enlisted advisor at Fort Drum and just brings a tremendous amount of knowledge to the table. And we're just so grateful that he could be here and share his thoughts with us today. Prior to coming to Fort Drum, he was the senior enlisted leader at the U.S. Army Cadet Command at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And he does have two previous assignments at Fort Drum with brigade operations with the 1st Brigade and also a battalion command sergeant major of the 3rd Battalion as well. So he's certainly well known to the North Country and really appreciate everything that he brings to the North Country as well. I did want to just share one quote from his change of responsibility back in March as well. Sergeant Major actually made a pledge that day that he said, "I will not be average. I will give it my all every single day, and I will leave it all on the field." That's the kind of person that he is, and he's the leader that we have at Fort Drum, and we're just so appreciative that he's with us today. Also appreciate the fact that Alex Hazard is the gentleman who will be conducting the interview today. I think most of us know Alex. I was actually surprised to look at the bio and recall that he's now been with us 6 years. Just seems like time has flown since he's been here, but he's been a great addition to the North Country. We all appreciate him through his work at ABC 50 as the lifestyle host, and we certainly thank him for everything he's done. He now resides in the town of Clayton. He's been involved in many, many activities and certainly not-for-profit philanthropic organizations throughout the region as well. So it's my pleasure to turn over to Alex to conduct the interview today. And Sergeant Major Terenas, thank you so much for being with us. And to our audience today, thank you as well. And thanks to National Grid.
Tom, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to see you. And Command Sergeant Major, really an honor to be able to speak with you today. So thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Now, here's the thing. There are tons of national headlines, local headlines that all affect Fort Drum, all affect you. And we're going to get to those at some point today. But I always think it's a good idea to just break it down to the basics. And so let's start with that today. What is an NCO? What's the difference between an NCO and a commissioned officer? And what is it that you do?
So obviously I'm the senior enlisted advisor for Fort Drum for Major General Minnis. So I'm his counterpart on the non-commissioned officer side of the house. And by virtue here, the way we are at Fort Drum, the senior non-commissioned officer and enlisted member of the team here. So officers obviously can matriculate, and I just happen to really know very well the way they come up from having been the cadet command sergeant major. So you can either start by going to the United States Army Military Academy, most folks know as West Point, where you matriculate through that after 4 years, become an officer. You can go through the ROTC program, which you go to a institution that has an ROTC program, and you can come in either for all 4 years or actually join the team at 2 years in, and then you become an officer in U.S. Army. Or you can go through the other process of what we call officer candidate school, which you start your career as an enlisted member in the armed forces and then go on to attend OCS and become a commissioned officer. Enlisted folks, obviously we come through what we commonly refer as basic training. A lot of folks call it boot camp, but that's that weird Marine stuff that we don't like to talk about. Just kidding. So we're basic training folks, and so we do not have, at the end of the day, the difference between a commissioned officer and non-commissioned officer. Commissioned officers have command authority. They also have the Uniform Code of Military Justice, our court-martial convening authority, and have different by congressional law, obviously different levels of responsibility. The non-commissioned officers, we are those entities that support and advise the commissioned officer. At the end of the day, we follow their intent and follow their orders. And unless they're illegal, immoral, or unethical, we make sure that we're there to advise them. Now, my specific job, I always like to say that my biggest job with a general officer, and this is my third, what we call nominative positions, is to help them see the blind spots. Because I maneuver in this space where it allows me to speak to the lowest of soldiers of where I grew up to the most of senior folks inside the military. And I get a complete different perspective. And my ability to really take the commander's intent, execute it, and then also as well be able to come up to him and say, hey, here's what's going well, here's what's not going well. We also joke that I'm probably the only person that doesn't lie to the general. So, you know, I'm the only one that's going to come up to him, and I'm allowed that, but virtue of the responsibility that commander gives me to kind of give him that feedback. So again, at the end of the day, I help him see blind spots and make the organization better every single day.
Well, to that point, you know, everybody has a first duty station. Personally, my youngest brother is enrolled at in the ROTC program at Brockport.
Oh, nice.
And so I have kind of a personal interest in
Yeah.
what it's like arriving to that first duty station, and with my fingers crossed,
Yeah.
particularly here at Fort Drum.
So it's scary to tell you the truth.
Can imagine.
Yeah, and I actually talked to our senior leaders and talked to our folks and our other command sergeant majors within the installation to say, hey, some folks, so if as your brother goes through college, matriculating, he has kind of this 4-year roadmap to get into the Army. So by the time he comes to his first duty station, he has already a pretty good idea what the military is, has been to different installations, and has been, I guess, glued on what we do. So it's not as scary, but still, for a young lieutenant arriving in a new duty station and being in front of 30, 40, 50 folks, he or she a few days ago was a college student, and now you're responsible for the lives of 50 odd people. That can be pretty nerve-wracking, that's for sure. For the enlisted side of the house, and some of the things I always tell our leaders is, hey, look, 2 days ago, this kid was, and I hate to call him kid, this soldier was sitting at home with mom and dad and brothers and sisters, and has lived in the same community and the support group. And now they're in this complete different environment, a little bit scary. And then especially if you come to Fort Drum, probably a little cold, depending on the time of the year that you come here. So, we need to wrap our arms around them and make them feel at home a little bit. So I hope that makes sense.
What is the Army doing to help acclimate those soldiers as they come in?
So I think the biggest piece that we do is the sponsorship, which is, hey, when the soldier arrives, even prior to them arriving, be able to reach out to them, say, here's what we have, here's what the installations, here's the resources. What do you need help with? If it's a married soldier, housing, all those things that come into it. And the one thing we are very lucky at Fort Drum, and not to speak disparaging about other locations, but we have a really tight community. And that's very helpful for us to be able to bring soldiers into it and then quickly assimilate into this area. But sponsorship is probably one of the biggest things we do. And then we started, actually, Sergeant Major of the Army, Grinston, started this some time ago, and it's become actually a program of record for the U.S. Army called This Is My Squad, which means that when you come in, we call it TIMS for short, is that we're going to bring you into the team. We're going to get to know you're from. We're going to tell you our story, but you quickly become assimilated into a group that knows you, knows everything about you. You know everything about us, creates trust inside the organization. So those are some of the things definitely we do to assimilate soldiers. We got a long ways to go. And sometimes we do better jobs than other time. COVID has definitely made things specifically tough. But that's what we're trying to do.
You mentioned there the difference between coming into the Army with a family
Yeah.
or demographically, what is the average soldier looking like that's enlisting in the Army right now?
So when it comes to married soldiers and single soldiers, I think we're probably running around probably the under 20% of the majority of the soldiers that join our ranks bring families with them. Although that's seen over the years to grow substantially, the majority of them are single soldiers. And it's funny when you ask about demographics, where from specifically. That's the beautiful part of the Army. I can't tell you a single demographic that's joining the Army that's more pervasive than any other. We are America. You can only, did PT this morning, ran all over our streets and our roads, and you have everything. You have everything from folks that are African Americans to Asians to, and honestly, to me, it's kind of weird to speak demographics because I was having a discussion the other day, whether it's male, female, racial background, composition, whatever. All I see is soldiers. It doesn't honestly.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
It is. After 30 years in this business, I don't see any of that. I just see another soldier. I might see a specific job she or he does, and that's all I see. So, but it's a beautiful thing to go around our Army and see how diverse we are. That's for sure.
I have to tell you, I have the same feeling. You walk into the Crystal here for breakfast,
Yeah.
and there's often a lot of soldiers there having breakfast as well. And in this time where we're seeing so much going on in the world, it's always so nice to just see all the uniforms and know how many people are willing to keep us safe. But to that point, actually, just keep moving along here. We're used to going to the Crystal and seeing our soldiers for breakfast, and this year, obviously with COVID-19, we haven't been able to do that at all, really. I mean, you see some folks at the grocery store and things like that. How have the soldiers been doing during this time where they've really been so isolated to Fort Drum?
It's been extremely tough. I'm a product. I have a family. I have 2 daughters and my wife, and we love to go out to the community. And we remember being here a few years back and being able to go all over the place. We're extremely bummed over the summer at all the things that this area offers that are just amazing that we couldn't do anymore. But, I couldn't be more proud of our team going through the sacrifices that they have with the ultimate understanding that it is not about them. It is not about us, but it is about our community. And it is about really combating this COVID problem as quickly and as fast as we can so we can get back to normalcy. And above all, at the end of the day, of what our priority mission is for the United States Army, that's to protect the Constitution and be able to perform our missions. And for that, we have to keep ourselves obviously in top physical shape. And obviously not be hindered by the COVID piece. But the soldiers, they've done well. If you think about it and you look at the community, you look at what our folks have been doing, I couldn't be more proud. They've taken some really difficult operating environment that's been very difficult for them personally, not being able to go see their families, because as you can imagine, 19,000 526 of us here, and of those folks, very few of them have been able to go see their families from all over this country, in some of them overseas. So they're doing well, and the great news here is that slowly but surely we got normalcy coming. Right now, believe it or not, Fort Drum, New York, and our team here has one of the highest percentage rates of opt-in for the, something happened. So one of the highest opt-in percentages for the vaccine, which makes me very, very proud of our team, and which is getting us back to normalcy very, very quickly, and hopefully get ready to go back out there in the community, the things that we always have done.
I've seen you and a lot of leaders there on Fort Drum. You guys have been posting your vaccinations.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of? I mean, how are the average soldier? Are they pretty willing to get the vaccine? I know there's some folks that are hesitant to get it.
No, absolutely. So, and that's the other piece that makes me so proud of our folks is they understand that it's not, again, what I said before, it's not about us. Because at the end of the day, if you think of where COVID affects the most, that's not our population. Young population, majority of the Fort Drum between the ages of 18 to 26, they understand that whatever concerns they have about the vaccine, at the end of the day, it's about the folks that live outside. It's about our families. It's about the people that we potentially can expose. So I always tell them, is something bad going to happen to me if I get COVID? No, I'm genetically superior anyway. So, so I don't think anything's, and that's a joke. So I don't think anything's going to happen to me, but I know that if I carry the virus and I go outside our gates or even to my own family, that potentially I can cause a whole lot of harm. So getting vaccinated is a no-brainer, to tell you the truth. And a lot of our population on this post, like I said, more than any other installation U.S. Army has opted in, with around almost a 60% opt-in rate right now. And you know, really quick, not to belay too much on the subject, is it's also about purpose. Once the soldiers know, hey, you know, we're deploying to X, Y, or Z place, and you got to be, they jump right in, and they're ready to go. Now we're getting ready to go to West Point to train cadets at West Point this summer. The majority of those folks are saying, you know what, if it protects them and it protects the mission, I'm in. So very proud to see that.
Well, I have to tell you, I let him implant a Nintendo into me at this point if it just meant we could get back to some normalcy. So even keeping people safe is great. I believe in science, yes, but also like I'll do anything to get back.
You know, at the end of the day, what we tell the soldiers a lot, and it's not a bumper sticker, is to choose two things that have saved more lives in the world than anything else: clean water, vaccines. And this is the only way we're going to win this fight.
Any outlook on this becoming, once it's approved by the FDA, something that could be mandatory for soldiers?
The potential is there. I don't want to speak to the senior leaders that will make those decisions, but if you look historically at anything else, it's a mandated vaccine, just like, you know, we did anthrax and a couple other things out there. Once it's approved, safe, which is safe right now, I think it's a lot of formality stuff. We'll probably all have to get it.
The weirdest thing about this all, with having so many soldiers home, is that we actually have fewer soldiers deployed right now than normal. A lot of, you mentioned some figures and numbers there of how many folks are on Fort Drum right now, and isolated there. So what are the soldiers doing to keep busy with training, and what is the day-to-day looking like right now?
To tell you the truth, it's funny that we're not, so our deployments have decreased in numbers, and not to get too much into specifics. But the funny part is that we're busier than ever. So there is training around the clock. This morning ran into some folks over in Triple Deuce to give them a shout. Deeds, not words. And, packing bags, getting ready to go out to the machine gun range for a few days. We have our 3rd Brigade that's at Fort Polk is about to start their JRTC rotation. It's for the crowd, exercise, month-long exercise to get a mission ready for anything in the world, in which encompasses quite a few soldiers from Fort Drum that will go down to Fort Polk to assist with the training and assist with all the deployable piece. As a matter of fact, leaving tomorrow, doing a wonderful 24-hour drive to Fort Polk. Very excited about that. It's my 5th time. Very sarcastic right now. So, but yeah, we're extremely busy. We have folks going to to West Point this summer, about 1,000 folks to assist cadets during their cadet summer training and get ready to go. So it's a constant cycle. So honestly, even with the COVID, there was potentially a month-long time there when things got really crazy, that we potentially slowed down. But ever since, we've been knocking it out of the park and moving around the clock. That's for sure.
We mentioned the training there, and I'm on the AOSA board here, and we go to the conference every year. And one of my favorite things is seeing all the new equipment and but also I'm like, that would require so much training to even learn how to turn the thing on.
Yeah.
So is the Army fielding any new equipment coming to Fort Drum?
So to give you one of my background, was the operational test command out of Fort Hood, Texas. So we're the folks that do all the operational testing for everything from a pair of boots to airplanes and all that other stuff. So got a little bit of knowledge of what we're doing. So there is constant fielding. We're constant fielding some sort of new product coming in. We're talking about everything from night vision goggles to weapon systems. So Fort Drum's actually in the forefront of being the folks that are testing the new rifle for the United States Army, both the replacement for what we call the M4 and our squad automatic weapon systems. So seeing that evolve very rapidly. So you'll see that. Our folks down at Fort Pogue for 3rd Brigade. By the way, the brigade down at Fort Pogue, I like to tell them that they're not stationed at Fort Pogue. They just happen to go on an extended deployment that hasn't finished. I mean, and yeah, it's been a few years and it might be the next few years, but they're Fort Drum, that's for sure. But they just got the new, what we call the JLTV, the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle replacement for the Humvee. So that's being fielded across our division. We fielded the new pistols that replaced the M9 Beretta now with 6 hours, the M20 to M17. So there's a constant fielding of new equipment across our division. So it just never stops.
To kind of pivot here and talk about some things that are a little bit more serious. I follow you on Twitter. And on February 21st, you had to tweet out an apology video. I mean, you had some folks in training that weren't following protocols. Can you just kind of break down what it was that happened there and how you plan to move forward?
So we had, there was a video that came out about some folks doing, I think it was like a 30 to 40 some odd second video of some folks doing some training at a shoot house that was not the standard. It's just not how we do business. And the crazy part is that what you saw those folks do at the shoot house, we do that type of training around the clock here, which is enter and clear a building in live fire conditions. So some of the folks who were doing some things that were potentially unsafe. And then when we saw it, there was a huge response on that video saying, hey, what are you guys doing there at Drum? So I wanted to do a couple of things with it. One, I wanted to say, hey, rather than the usual start in probably being in the media side of the house, kind of dancing around the subject.
Call it the spin,
Yeah, the spin. I said, hey, that's not me whatsoever.
Right.
I'm a simple infantryman. And if something's wrong, you take ownership and you go fix it. And that's exactly what I wanted to let him know. Hey, this is not us. This is not what we do every day. As a matter of fact, you probably didn't see the rest of the video where, it stops and then there's an after action review that says, hey, we got a problem here, let's fix it. So that's the parts that folks, they only concentrate on that 30, 40 second video thing. But I wanted to let them know, hey, not us. This is not what we do. It's not the standard 10th Mountain Division by no means, and we're going to fix it. So we are fixing it. So they're going to reconduct training. It's being addressed. We re-looked at our procedures of how we do things very quickly. And I guess the next part of this is I probably have to do another video being at the shoot house and show them, hey, here's the exact standard. But the funny thing is I can go there right now and there's probably 2 or 3 different units doing the shoot house training to standard the right way, the way we've done things in 10th Mountain Division. And we'll continue and have always done in 10th Mountain Division.
To that point of accountability, and I think it's admirable to be able to do that, to say, listen, this happened and let's move on. There's also been an independent review committee report released from Fort Hood involving sexual assault. And while the report was commissioned to look at Hood, it took a broader look at sexual assault in the Army as a whole. So can you explain to our audience what happened and how the report affects us across the Army and particularly here in our backyard at Fort Drum?
No, absolutely. So Obviously, there was a bunch of issues that came across in another installation that and again, that's the kind of organization we are, that rather than sweep things under the carpet, we're going to take a very critical look at ourselves and say, hey, we got a problem, how we're going to fix this thing. And was actually an independent report by an independent committee, not from inside the Army, came and took a look and found it. So the first, and obviously we took that report, passed it out to every single leader in the United States Army to take a look at their specific locations, organizations, and installations. And then there was a lot of folks that when they read the report had all sorts of feelings. But I really like what the Chief of Staff for the Army said, is that don't take, in lack of better words, a kung fu posture to say, hey, this is not us. You must be able, you have to have a look at it and say, hey, what are we not doing? Are we taking a look at ourselves internally? And I think it's probably been one of the best things for us, because, we get caught up in the bureaucracy of things and systems, and we're thinking no one's acting in a nefarious way. I think we're just all going along our lives in the tremendous op-tempo that we have in the Army. And sometimes we don't see things that are happening within our organization that we need to fix. So I always use the analogy of the garage door, and this is how I communicate this to my to our leaders. And I tell them this. So every time I go home, my wife gets very irritated at me because I leave the garage door open. And I come home, I leave it open. I leave in the morning, I leave it open, and it's like, what's wrong with you? So I have to ask myself, why do I leave the garage door open? Well, I leave the garage door open because I'm extremely distracted. I have 19,522 soldiers in the division that I'm responsible for, and the entire installation, training, folks deployed all over the world. So things are constantly going in my mind. So I become distracted at the fact that I'm not closing the garage door. And then the other side of this thing is, I live on posts, I live next to the general, no one's going to come in my garage. You know what I mean?
Well, I have to tell you, I have this raccoon that has been,
yeah,
I've been having an issue. So the general's not going to your garage door. Your wife's worried about the raccoon.
That's right. But here's the funny thing. So when I say no one's going to come in my garage, what I have is a false sense of security. And that's the other things that we have in our organization. Sometimes we have this false sense of security that, something bad is happening, but we say, no, not here, not at 10th Mountain Division ever. So the analogy honestly is, one, what doors are we not closing to prevent sexual assault and all the other things that came out of that report? Are we closing these doors? Because at night, what's the last thing you do before you go to bed? You check all the doors, all the locks, keep your family safe. So are we doing the same thing for the population at Fort Drum? Are we closing those doors? Are we making sure that we keep and pay attention and are not distracted to close those doors? And then two, again, the false sense of security. Don't think for a moment that this report came from another installation and that potentially is not happening in your formation. And I think at the end of the day, it's things like this. It's the communication, and what windows do you open for communication that allows soldiers a way to come to you and say, hey, this is happening, because we can't see it all. Sometimes we start operating up here in stratosphere. We're not connected to the reality down on the ground. So I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. And it's serious and it's important, and it's a national conversation for a reason. And there's another national conversation I wanted to touch on today that seems less serious, seems less important, but I think that it is important in a lot of ways. So I'm talking about there's new what do you call it? There's new guidelines for grooming.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So there's new guidelines for grooming here, and it seems frivolous and it seems not important, but it is important. So can you kind of break down to us what these guidelines are and why it's important and why the Army is taking a look at that?
So there's a myriad of groomings, and a lot of it is you know, earrings, you know, some of the length of the hair. Can you wear the hair in a ponytail or not? A lot of it has come down to, honestly, some of the female soldier population and some of those standards. But all those aside, the biggest piece here that we have to, hey, look, I came in the Army 30 years ago. I was a complete different individual, complete different priorities from the soldiers that are coming in the military now. And we must adapt. At the end of the day, we're an all volunteer force, right? And we must be able to recruit, retain the best of the best to be able to do the less than 1% job that we're asked to do for our country. So even though folks think those things are frivolous, a lot of folks get emotionally attached to, you know, the changes.
Sure.
Hey, this is what's made our Army absolutely great. That we are able to adapt, and we're able very quickly to say, hey, let's do this. I don't know if that makes the sense that I'm talking, but one thing I've always said is, so when I came in the military 30 years ago, the majority of probably my platoon sergeants and first sergeants, these grizzly old dudes, they were all Vietnam vets.
Sure.
They were. You know, it's crazy. These,
Right.
you know, because I came in 1990, 20 years prior to that, it was 1970, the height of the Vietnam War. And I idolized those folks. You know, I read books with them. I watched Platoon, you know, the movie, you know, you know, so movies that for me growing up were really, you know, part of our culture and mainstream. A lot of kids now, you talk about movie Platoon, they look at you like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. But anyway, I remember being in Korea, my first duty station, and I was watching some of the platoon sergeants, and they're sitting there talking, and I kind of want to hear the conversation because I want to be like them. And I want to be that kind of individual. They're heroes to me. And you know what they were saying? Man, this new generation coming in, God, they don't have it. They're not the right people, man. Right. Our army is gonna go to hell in a handbasket. And I'm thinking, whoa, that's me. They're talking about me. So I always think of that because the other day I was thinking to myself, 9/11 happened this year coming up 20 years ago. So I'm looking in the mirror thinking, oh man, I'm the Vietnam vet. I'm that guy now. So, you know, when you think about a lot of the soldiers that are in our ranks right now weren't even born when 9/11 happened. And so I got to think about that, and I got to think of, you know, how do I look at the new soldiers coming in? And I tell you, honestly, and this is not just some cool saying because I'm doing an interview, they are more capable. They can deal with a lot more than I dealt when I came in the military. When I came in the military, I had a rifle. I had this front sight post and this little circle, and we aligned the two and we shot at targets. And that was the extent of technology on my weapon system. Today, they have infrared, they have thermal imagery, they're dealing with the new weapon system will have a Bluetooth to their night vision goggles, at the same time talking through radios that are both digital and format. So if you think about the new generation and the capacities that they have, we must be in tune with that. And if it means that we change a little bit of our grooming standards to attract the best and brightest to our ranks, I'm all about it. I'm not emotionally attached to any of it. I hope that long answer.
No, well, you know, that's why we wanted to touch on it. And in that same policy, God bless you, they address a change in combat patch criteria. And to the same point, to folks like me who don't have the military background, we see a lot of patches, we see a lot of things. We don't always see the significance in them. They're important
they are.
In the military. So can you talk to us a little bit about those changes? And, you know, they talked about military operations in hostile environments versus just a combat patch and the differences there. Can you just kind of explain that to us and why that matters to soldiers?
When you deploy into a combat theater, you get what's called your combat patch. And some of them is you get the combat patch as soon as you land down on the ground and you're in that combat environment, whatever the major component that you're in, that's where you get your combat patch. So like, you know, I need to deploy with the 10th Mountain Division because I want my 10th Mountain patch, even though I have a couple other ones from other folks. So that's the importance of combat patch. So I haven't actually seen all the specific changes of what they're doing with the combat patch. I think some of it is with time on the ground, how long you are, and what's considered a hostile or a permissive type of environment. Because for a long time, we were deploying to theaters that were considered, you know, hostile and we're fighting it out, that today are not that anymore. And I think that's some of those changes that are coming about. But it is an emotional subject to a lot of folks because, you know, it's who we are. It's part of what we do, and it identifies you that, hey, you know, you have done your service overseas or in a combat zone and to get your patch. So I need to, I'll be plainly honest, I need to dig a little bit more into some of those changes that are coming in. There's so much constantly coming in that sometimes I'm having a hard time keeping up with some of it. But I hope I sort of explained that.
No, it makes complete sense. And we've talked so much today about what's going on right here at Fort Drum, what happens when you are deployed. Something that is happening at our southern border, obviously, and I want to end on this today, are an influx of immigrants. And we've seen every day the national headlines, something to do with this. And sometimes the answer could be to help place folks in military installations, maybe, or maybe have soldiers come and help in that situation. Do you have any outlook on how this might affect soldiers across the board? And do you think that there's any chance of maybe even folks getting shipped here to Fort Drum?
So far, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard about us being one of those installations that would have folks come to us. So I got to give you a little bit of my background. I'm originally Portuguese. I came to the States when I was 16 years old. I did have an American mother, Portuguese father, but one of the greatest things about our country is that you know, we're a beacon of freedom, and we will take care of all sorts of folks, and because they're looking for a better life. And I know there's a lot of emotions attached to all the things that are happening on there. I can tell you this: that the military will be prepared to follow the orders of our commander in chief, no matter what it is. And if it means that we will bring folks, house them, and take care of them with dignity and respect on our installation to potentially provide them a better life or whatever our government decides to do, that's exactly what we'll do. And we'll do a fantastic job at it, as we always do, to tell you the truth. And that's the proud part of who we are as a military. And I think a lot of soldiers identify with folks because within our ranks, we have plenty of folks that became citizens by serving in the armed forces here at Fort Drum. So right now, nothing on the horizon. Have received no orders or have been told of any prospects of that happening for us. But if it happens, let me tell you, we'll be ready to do what we do best.
Well, Command Sergeant Major, thank you so much for taking the time today. Because your Portuguese background, I'll say, foi prazer.
No, de nada.
I care to talk to you again, and I hope that you stay safe and you and your family stay safe, and you keep all of our soldiers safe.
Thank you very much. On a closing note, we have to bring a Portuguese restaurant up to Watertown for sure. I have to drive like 5 hours to go find one.
I agree.
Thank you very much. It's a true pleasure on behalf of myself and Major General Minnis to be part. Couldn't thank you enough for having me.